Your Song with Richard Mercer on WS FM 101.7.
Robyn has sent mail through about her song from Faith Hill, Breathe. It relates to a guy called Paul who came into Robyn's life following the demise of her marriage. There was domestic violence and other factors involved in that marriage, so consequently Robyn was a little bit wary of falling in love again. Eventually Paul proposed to Robyn, and it was because of the background of domestic violence in her marriage that she was reluctant to give a fast answer. Paul decided that he wanted to get a motorbike as a wedding present for himself. Robyn was dead against it. He came home with the bike, and Robyn and Paul had a huge argument, and then he took off. He didn't answer any calls from Robyn for the next 2 or 3 days. A few days later, the police knocked at Robyn's door, and Robyn takes up the story. The police said that Paul had been in an horrific bike accident, and he wasn't expected to live. The police drove me to Royal North Shore Hospital, and on the way I knew that this was my worst fear. It was the worst night of my life. I got there, Paul was pretty mangled, and they hadn't even tried to operate because he wasn't expected to live. I sat beside Paul's bed. There were hundreds of tubes in him, and I just prayed and prayed. The nurse came in and asked if I'd like a cup of tea, and would I like the radio on to drown out the sounds of the machines keeping Paul alive. I sat there and I looked at Paul, and the song Breathe came on the radio. It was so appropriate because Paul had a trachea in his throat, and the machines were doing all the work. I sang the song Breathe so loud, right at Paul's face. Then I got out my phone and I downloaded the song so I could sing it over and over. I know he heard me. I'd swear he heard it. I just kept singing and crying and willing Paul to live. He did survive. However, he became a full quadriplegic that night. The police never found the driver who ran him off the road. I spent my days and nights there as often as I could. But I was a single mum with a first mortgage on my own trying to survive. It was tough. Paul spent many months in Royal Rehab at Ryde. I held raffles and auctions and called on everyone I could possibly call on to help. I was able to add things to Paul's house to prepare it for his coming home. Paul did come home, but decided to take the doctor's advice, and he moved to Queensland, where his body could cope better. So Paul and I never married. He said he didn't want to burden me. He said he couldn't do that. I was prepared to do so, but he wouldn't let me. Paul and I still keep in contact via phone, and I still feel a lot of love for him. I've let myself go since this. I think I maybe feel guilty. I've not been romantically involved with anyone since this happened in the year 2000. It's been too long. These days I work hard in a local hospital, and part of my job is looking after the deceased. I see so much sadness in this world. I try to do my job with love and compassion, but I would love to go on that cruise just to lighten up my life a little.
Your Song with Richard Mercer on WS FM 101.7.